Hey there, welcome to Methy Monday, episode 7. Happy Memorial Day. I'm a veteran. However, on these holidays, I think about similar to the way that, most folks in the military would think about like prisoners of war or those killed in action or those missing in action. I think about the people who I met out in San Francisco in 2014 who have passed away as those who have been killed in innocence and purity in a world that doesn't know how to hold them. And so today's episode is dedicated to those folks and to the people who are still alive. And I'm going to give you some context in a second. Um, so when I reached out to, I guess I reached out to multiple people on that app in 2014, and I was trying to make them aware that the community that I was in had experienced such a tragic loss. The community that I was existing in was transitional age youth who were queer and homeless out here in San Francisco. And this person who had been murdered, his name was George Saldivar. And so I didn't know what had happened to him. I just knew that I didn't have the scope of practice to keep the folks who were still alive safe from whatever happened to him happening to them. And so I tried to figure out, how do I get the community to understand that these folks need to be held in safety. The thing is that over the course of the 10 years of me living here, I continued to lose more people. And so up to this very day, I still deal with a tremendous amount of concurrent loss while trying to grieve and mourn people that I have lost. So to give you an understanding of how the list just kind of goes on with people that have died, whose faces I've seen, whose voices I've heard. I've spent proximity with these folks in certain spaces. And so I'll tell you some stories about some of them. So after George passing away, my friend Demi also passed away, and I remember dancing in this strip club on Market Street. I think it's where the Proposition Chicken is right now. It used to be a strip club. I forget what it was called. But we were dancing in there. Not really a strip club that had stripper poles, but it was like a queer bar where people would go to and they had stripper poles in there. And so me and Demi are in there. Mind you, this is like a trans woman, and we are just having such a good time. And so later on, I found out that she had passed away. And so that was another person that I just was just like, then living out on the street, using meth, I lost friends. The list is so crazy. I have a friend named Twitch who passed away out here. I have a friend, Roxy, passed away out here. My friend Jeremy passed away. My friend Tony passed away. There's so many people that I was in the streets with whose lives no longer exist. And then I went into rehab, and I met more people who I ended up losing. And I'm going to be honest with you, I honestly don't even want to list the names, because for me, living with PTSD, it becomes so triggering. My brain space begins to see faces that flash, over and over again. What I want to really explain is that I guess my internalized heaviness about it all is that I desired to learn how to love people who were identities that I had never known before. And I found that I could not hold them in safety. And to this day, I still wonder, how do we keep people safe from preventable homicide, preventable overdoses, preventable chronic conditions, medical chronic conditions that lead to someone's compromise or mortality. As I'm doing work in the advocacy space to try to create that intercession, I continue to lose more people. And so my friend Nico passed away with my friend Henry in a transitional aged youth housing space here in San Francisco. They both overdosed on fentanyl, and they weren't fentanyl users. They used other substances. And I wrote grievances about this, because as a veteran, I start tracking, what is the capacity to create intercession steps with these agencies so that we don't lose these young folks to these really tragic deaths? And I still have yet to hear follow-up on that. And then I lost another friend recently. Her name was Michelle Henry, and she was stabbed on Post Street. And I had met this gender non-binary trans femme, transitional aged youth who's Black out here. This is Michelle Henry, such a sweetheart to me. And to find out about her tragic death, I don't know how to process a singular human being who I've lost. I don't know how to create the space to mourn one person that I've lost when another, it's just another, and another, and another, and another, you know what I mean? And then I think about how I have transformed my heart to learn how to love people. And I don't believe that I'm perfect at that today, but I will say that at some point I decided that I was not going to be phobic, meaning afraid or holding hatred towards anything outside of me, especially any human being. And I try to practice that immediate transformative love that I've developed towards people who are still alive, towards people who are queer in the LGBT community, people who are Black, people who are all different types of races. I'm trying to understand what is equality, what is equity, what is freedom, truly in measurement and tangibility and application and practice. While noticing that the more that I misstep on my capacity to do that, the more I lose human hearts. I think about how if I had stuck to the mindset I had before coming out of the closet, I would have looked at people in this community, even in measurement, with this separation in eyesight. I understand body language and connection. And I recognize that I have friends today who I sit with in this community, who on sight, I have the capacity to hold a discovery space about them outside of assuming anything about them. And I'm trying to practice getting better at that. But I'm noticing that measurement of respect, that boundary that I hold with myself to not be judgmental towards someone that I do not know, is lending to me building these friendships that have this longevity and intimacy that I cannot explain. And so, when I lose people in this very same community, I try to hold this agency in my transformation to navigate how do I magnify my transformation from being homophobic, transphobic, internalized racism, racist towards myself, my own community of Black people, people of different races based off of just ignorance that I just followed and modeled.
As a 30-something-year-old, how have I navigated transforming out of that in order to harness this discovery space about lending someone equity, equality, and freedom on site? My body language has changed. I don't look at people with this, I don't know if I should talk to you. I wonder what are the real reasons to know if someone is safe to be around instead of these methods that we're taught to judge each other by that really blind us. When I sit with people in my community and we have this on-site connection and this level of respect and boundaries that we hold with one another, we end up building these spaces where we communicate these common pains. Like in the transgender community, I have friends who are transmasculine who communicate to me this pain about toxic masculinity. And on Memorial Day, as a veteran, I will admit that I held this toxic masculinity about homicidal tendencies as a active duty military personnel. And I wonder the measurement of transforming that mind. What are the intercession steps that are needed to take someone who has a mentality to enact in the operations of warfare and transform that mind and heart to enact peace and love and kindness towards others and respect, and those three things: equality, equity, and freedom. Right now we have war going on around the globe. Sudan, the Congo, Gaza. And if you take a perspective outside of our little space here on this earth and just see the globe from the universe, how benign do we allow like these minuscule thoughts to, like, let me rephrase that. We allow these like little thoughts to magnify these hateful actions, that the measurement of them is really toxic towards our humanity and towards our universe and nature. But when we transform our minds to understand how to hold each other as a humanity within this universe, I think the measurement of that will create this unfathomable human bonding that is actually like logical and makes sense, instead of all the things that we argue about that don't. Even the things that we incite upon our children to navigate about their identity, I find to be a molestation of their freedom. We oppress our youth with making them navigate these American terminologies that we've constructed them to guide along, when really they could teach us a lot more about our nature than we understand if we just watch them innately and model their behavior. There's something about true love that helps me navigate this course. And I don't want to misstep on that. Because hatred, I know the tangible measurement of me hating another person and what it does to that human being, myself, and all the people around us. Our human budding must cease. But how do we do that? I think we need to understand that that's a discovery space that we have not practiced as a humanity for a very, very, very long time. And if we stop doing the patterns of our history, the oppressive patterns of human behavior, and we begin to harness freedom and holding the boundaries of not wanting to strip another person of their freedom, because it also strips us of our individual freedom and our freedom as a universe. The more that I think that me oppressing another human is more important than me planting a seed in the soil, the more I refuse my connection to my nature. That's why I don't want to misstep on love. And that's why I know I'm polyamorous and I can love a whole bunch of people if I learn how to love them each as who they are. I do not give someone a particular type of love and say that the equality and equity of that is to give that same love to everybody else. No, every human being is different. How do I learn how to hold certain muscle tissues and joints of a particular human being for who their human body is and lend that textured love to them that holds them in healing and builds their livelihood? That to me is true love. And I do it with this boundary. I call it a love hack. When I desire to really love someone, I start to notice that my consciousness develops around seeing a higher power. Some people call that God. Some people don't believe in a higher power or God. They believe in nature and what happens around them in reality. But I believe in being vigilant of something higher or more powerful than me, operating around them and about them. And that it is my responsibility, if I love them, to be vigilant, not of pleasing them and calling that love, but responding to that a power that governs them. And not misstepping on my response to that higher power that governs however they dictate my human bonding toward those people I vomit out of my mouth. I love you. Because the measurement of that godly love, I've known since I was born. My mom gave it to me. And I extend that love to wherever I go. And that's why I can take my freedom wherever I go, even in such an oppressive space like jail or homelessness, and begin to communicate to people in those oppressive settings, hey, guess what? Your freedom is now. Especially if you harness certain values and certain boundaries that make it where you are not oppressing someone else's. How would you know your own freedom if you're spending your mentality and your thought process trying to strip someone else of their ego and their pride just to feel a false pride about yourself? Me as a queer person, when we celebrate Pride in June, I'm not about my pride being something about me coupling up with somebody that's of the same sex as me. My pride is in how I've harnessed to love a whole bunch of motherfuckers that are different than me, and the tangibility of that love. And I know I've made some missteps because I've lost some people, but I'm saying I don't want to lose no more human hearts and lives that I've seen face to face. I don't want to lose those lives no more. So on this Memorial Day, I'm trying to harness within myself a love that does not misstep, a love that understands how to establish the safety of the people that I care about and the people who I don't know. I don't want to have a mindset that separates me from other people. I want to know my nature to have a vigilance of other people's life energy so that I can hold that life energy sacred. And however that higher power deems that sacred entity to be held, I want to be obedient to that. Happy Methy Monday. I'll see y'all next week.